Hello, this is John Lund with My B2B Coach. This is session 5 of 5 tips. I'm excited to have Rob Simons of Simons.Coach. Rob's a long-term EO friend of mine and a great partner in strategy planning. I'm excited to have you here today, Rob. Tell a little bit about your company and share your 5 tips. Go right ahead, Rob.
Thank you, John. I'm excited to be here. Wish we were going to be going out and playing golf today, but since we're not, let's see if we can provide a little value. So Simons.Coach, a coaching organization. I primarily work with entrepreneurs who have reached a plateau in their business and they haven't figured out how to get to that next level. All of us as entrepreneurs, we need a little help sometimes. We need somebody to hold us accountable. And typically you get to a certain level and you just start getting frustrated. And so what I do is I work with companies to build that next level of leadership in the organization, to build alignment, to build purpose, and build accountability so they can grow to the next level. I've been doing that for about 7 years, and I just love what I get to do every day.
That's great. Tell us about your 5 tips.
So probably the most common thing working with hundreds of companies, when we do surveys and we talk to team members, probably the most common thing I hear that's a challenge for organizations is communication. I can't tell you how many times people say, oh, communication doesn't work. We don't get the right communication. We don't get it at the right time. Things happen at the top. We don't have good communications between departments. It's just always communications. And so the one meeting that I find to be the most essential meeting for any organization, and as we'll talk about later, especially in a remote work environment, is the Daily Huddle or the Daily Stand-Up. You can call it either one. But the idea behind it is that once a day, we're going to get together for less than 15 minutes, and we're going to make sure that everybody is aligned. And we're going to create an environment where everybody is providing relevant information. And it provides that information so we know exactly what to do. So tip number 1 is make sure that you have a daily huddle, 15 minutes or less. And I'm going to give you some very specific instructions on how you put that together. The second tip is a lot of people say, well, that sounds good, especially when you're in person, we all come together. But what about now? We've got everybody working from home. And what I've found is that the daily huddle is actually even more important, because one of the things that you lose when you're working from home is that social connection, right? We don't see people in the hallway. We don't have an opportunity to talk to somebody around the water cooler. We're just alone. I mean, some people may have their spouse and their kids, but there are a lot of workers as well that are just working in an apartment by themselves. And so we're social creatures as human beings, and we want to feel like we're part of a team. The other thing that having a daily huddle does in a remote work environment is it creates almost like bookends. It at least gives you the clear demarcation. This is the start of the business day. And to me, that's one of the really important things is if you have a daily huddle at 8:30 and you're still working from home, you know that you have to get ready for work. You have to be at your home office and you're ready to go at 8:30 for the daily huddle. And as a leader, it also makes me feel good to know that all my team members have that start and they're all focused on what do we need to get done today. So that's tip number 2. If you're in a remote work environment, this may be the most important thing you can do, whether you're using Zoom or you're using Teams. It's just a really great tool. So let me tell you a little bit. Number 3, let me tell you a little bit about what the structure looks like and why you need to do it. Most human beings have some sort of news source that they go to every day, whether it's the local news, whether it's CNN or Fox, or maybe they listen to NPR in the car while they go to work. Maybe they go on to ESPN every day. Maybe they get newsletters in their email box. But I haven't found too many people that don't have some news source every day. I know I like to listen to the local news to find out what's going on in my city while I'm getting ready to go for work. And really, what I'm listening for is primarily 3 things. I'm listening for the headlines, what's going on in the world, so I'm informed. The weather, do I need to carry an umbrella? Am I going to be able to play golf at the end of the day, right? And then traffic. If I have a long commute, I want to know, is 410 shut down? Is 281 really busy, or should I find another route? The daily huddle for your organization is the exact same thing. It's the news, the pulse of your organization. And every one of your team members are the journalist. And so you do 4 rounds, and I'll talk about the 4th here in a second, but you do 4 rounds of information sharing, and it's super quick. Everybody comes prepared. And the first one is headlines. What happened yesterday or what's happening today that's relevant to your team members? It's not a to-do list of what you need to get done today. It's what happened yesterday, what's happening today that would be relevant. Hey, we won a big contract yesterday. We're going to need to get on building more products. Hey, want to let you know today, we have a big prospect that's going to be in the office between 1 and 2 o'clock. Make sure that your office space and your workspace is cleaned up. What is that information that everybody needs to know? Number 2, what's the weather? And so this is just simply KPIs or metrics that everybody needs to know. One of my favorite stories is I was at a big resort, and I was checking out, and it was taking a long time for the valet to get my car. And I said something to the valet guy. I said, man, you guys are really busy today. And he looked at me and he said, yes, we have 428 people checking out, and we have 512 people checking in today. And I thought, how freaking cool that the valet knew exactly how many people were checking out and how many people were coming in. And that's so he could prepare to know how to do his job. And that's what we talk about when we say KPIs. And so that's the weather section. Everybody shares any relevant KPIs from their department or their individual situation. And then number 3 is traffic. Are there any obstacles that are going to prevent you from getting your job done today? And so an obstacle might be is, hey, John, I'm waiting on for you to approve that new proposal. My client's expecting it by 1 o'clock today. I can't do my job because John is holding me up. And so the obstacle is the traffic. And then the final thing we do in a daily huddle is we say, what's the one thing I'm going to get done today? What's your most important priority to move the company forward? And this is just a simple accountability. And we usually say, I will contact 50 new cold leads today, right? And then tomorrow we'll have that opportunity to see, did you actually do the one thing that was the most important thing? So that's number 3, having the structure. It's basically the news source for your organization. Number 4, my other tip is the best time to have a daily huddle is different for every organization. I've seen it work where 7:47 in the morning, I've seen it work in the middle of the afternoon, and I've actually seen it work at the end of the day. I typically like it at the beginning of the day. I tend to think that most people want to have that alignment and focus for the day. One recommendation is to always kind of do it at a unique time. Don't do it at 8 o'clock, do it at 8:04. And it just makes it a little bit more memorable, and it makes it more specific. One of my accounting firms that I work with, they do their daily huddle at 10:40, which is kind of like a little subtle on the 1040 tax return. And so that's number 4, find the best time for your organization to have the daily huddle. By the way, if you have more than, I'd say 15 or 20 people, you may have to break up and have multiple huddles, right? And then the idea is that you have cascading huddles where one person, a manager, would be in 2 huddles. They would meet with their team, and then they'd go meet with the manager team. And so you'd have a cascading series of huddles. And then, the last one is just some of the best practices that I've seen. And I know, John, you've done a daily huddle for a long time, but the biggest thing I've seen to make these work is you have to commit to it. You have to tell everybody, this is part of our culture moving forward. It's not something we're going to try for a couple of weeks. It's something that we're just going to do. So let's figure out how to make it work. You've got to start on time. You've got to keep it to less than 15 minutes. And you have to set the right expectations. Is that everybody has to participate. Everybody has to be ready. Everybody needs to come with it in writing, or you can use a tool like aligntoday.com, where you can actually record the huddle, and then you actually have like a journal of the history of your company. So that's my 5. Have a daily huddle, especially if you're working remote. The structure is headline, weather, traffic, and then the one thing you're going to do today. find the best time for your organization, and then follow best practices. And John, I'll on my website, Simons.Coach, I've got a blog post that has all the nitty gritty details of how you implement a daily huddle in your organization.
Those are great tips. And to me, the Daily Huddle is close to me because I ran it for so long in my business as I grew, and starting at 15 people and growing up over to 60 people. And we ended up doing that cascading huddle. And so we'd have 2 huddles running each department and rolling up. And it just made such a difference on alignment and communication. When I tell people that, often though, they're like, wait a minute, you had 60 people for 10 minutes. Wow, that just seems like a lot of time. How do you respond when somebody throws that out at you?
Yeah, that's actually one of the most common responses. And there's always going to be a naysayer. And this is why you have to commit to it. There's always going to be naysayers that are like, oh, one more meeting. Seriously? We've got too many meetings as it is. But what I tell people is we're talking about 10 minutes or less. We're talking about something that's going to align the entire organization. I actually had a client who did this for about 2-3 months. And I did a survey and I came back in and they all said, man, communication is the best it's ever been, but I hate those daily huddles. And I'm like, did you just hear yourself? It's like communication's great, but we hate the huddle. You can't have one without the other. And so what I tell people is, number one, do it right. Make sure that you're following the best practices, keeping it short. But the other thing is when I say set expectations, the example I like to use with people is when you go to a conference, not that we've been going to conferences lately, but when you go to a conference, you see like 8 speakers over 2 days. And like 6 of the speakers just didn't really do anything for you. They were topics that you didn't care about, or maybe they weren't really good. But the other 2 speakers were just, it was an epiphany. Like they're going to change the way that you do business moving forward. And to me, that's kind of like the huddle. Like Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, maybe you don't really get that much out of it. But on Thursday, you heard something from the sales team that's going to change the way that you're doing your job and makes you better prepared for maybe a new set of orders coming in. And so you got to set the expectations. It's 10 minutes a day. It's not a huge commitment. And it's going to align the team and set the expectations that you're not going to have like every day, you're not going to walk out of there feeling like, oh, I learned something new today. But that one day you do learn something, it's going to be pretty powerful.
Yeah, that's great. With the transitions that have happened lately, is there any stories you'd like to share about what's been going on and using this daily huddle virtually more with more people away? And why don't you share some of those?
Yeah, this has been interesting. The world is very different right now. And one example is I have 2 clients. They're in the same industry, service-based industry. They're about the same size. I've been working with both of them for about 6 years. So, I mean, they both are well-run, high-performing organizations. And the one organization, they immediately switched. They started working from home probably about 8 weeks ago, and continued doing the daily huddle like nothing ever happened. Right? They just moved to Zoom. Everybody kept the daily huddle going. They were prepared. They continued sharing information. And then the second company, when they went to work from home, and I'm still not really quite sure why they made this decision, but they decided to stop the daily huddle. They're like, we're not in person. Everybody's working from home. They've got different schedules now. So we're not going to do the daily huddle. And I couldn't tell you, it could not be more different, the results of those 2 organizations. The first one that continued doing the daily huddle from home actually said that the last quarter was the best communication they've ever had as an organization ever in the history of the company. They said they've never felt more in tune. They said in some ways, being at home, they craved the information. They craved getting to the daily huddle and hearing what their coworkers were doing because they didn't get to see them in the office every day. The second organization, they kind of had the mindset of, hey, we've got lots of work. Everybody just go heads down, go home, get in your office and get work done. But nobody ever communicated. And so now they're all talking about like, well, I don't know what's going on. I really feel kind of lost. I wish the leaders had shared more information with us during the pandemic. And so it really showed, it was kind of an unintended experiment, but it really kind of shows that daily connection, whether it's in person or it's working remote, is really important. So that's probably one of my favorite stories from the pandemic to show the importance of the daily huddle.
It's a great story, and this is a great message for all sizes of businesses. I think it's an important thing to do, and communication is the key, whether we're in a situation like this or in where we're all back together again in a meeting. I want to thank you. You're a great storyteller, and it's been fun to have you on the My B2B Coach 5 Tips sessions that we do each week. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you, John. I appreciate you having me.
Bye.
Stay focused.